They're totally unprepared. Very few people know how to live off the land, how to grow their own food. But with these changes coming in, that's going to have to change dramatically.
Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age Conversations covers changes in our climate due to a new and intensifying grand solar minimum. In the media, overlooking, downplaying, or burying cold weather changes occurring on our planet. This is in order to keep the global warming agenda steaming full speed ahead. I do this podcast and radio program because we need to begin conversations on how to adapt our food growing strategies long before 2030 as agricultural zones shift, affecting global crop output, but very few mainstream media outlets are talking about the most important issue of our time: cold weather crop losses. Our sun is going through a 400-year cycle, which has effects on our weather patterns as our magnetosphere weakens and the jet streams go out of flow. It's not CO2, it's not you, it's the sun. Are you ready to thrive in the grand solar minimum? Then join me for Mini Ice Age Conversations. I'm your host, David DuByne.
A simple test I say to people is that you can get some watercress and put it next to a Wi-Fi router and then put some in the other room. The one next to the Wi-Fi router won't even grow very well at all. But when you hold it far away, it will. So it just shows that it's not just affecting us, it's affecting all life forms. And can we keep going if we're just getting constantly hit with this radiation? So the argument doesn't add up, and it's a very short-term argument they're putting forward. And of course, they're just getting us to prepare for the opposite of what we're really going to be facing so that we're even more unprepared.
Well, it's all about population decline anyway, and then controlling the smaller amount of masses that there will be, because then they could unfurl and roll out Agenda 2030 so easily. If we only have 1/4 of the world's population left after this grand solar minimum takes its toll, and then add inside all of these frequency grids that are on top. So maybe the natural decline, we were looking at around 25% global population decline, maybe 30%. That's based on historical past grand solar minimums, just taking the average from the Dalton minimum, the Maunder minimum, Sporter minimum, going back to the late antique little ice age, and further back in 400 BC, the Greek little ice age. There's quite a few different references. We can get a point, and then they talk about how much population decline there was. So on the average, we're looking around 25 to 30% global decline in population during a grand solar minimum as just a grand solar minimum. Now, when you add in on top of this 5G or these different kind of frequencies that we're coming into here, that could be far, far, far higher than just 25 or 30%. But, everybody's trying to figure out how they're going to implement Agenda 2030 at the current population that we have and squeeze everybody into these smart cities and squeeze everybody into a small little box to live in and then take away your car and, drip feed you a molecule of food per day. That answers the question on how they'd be able to do it. If there's substantial reduction in population, it would be quite an easy feat at that point to implement Agenda 2030.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. And, they've been planning this for decades, the rollout of this technology. And I just think, it looks like they're taking advantage with the timing of this natural cycle coming in, and they're bringing all this technology in and control system at the same time, not only to control us because, of course, the fear of rioting due to lack of food, but the fact that they can get away with reducing the population even more. And then they've got less of a problem with people rebelling or, their control system falling apart. Yeah, I really think that's what it's all about. My mission, or what I'm basically trying to do, is just raise awareness of this in the best way possible, and therefore just keep on doing the talks, getting the word out there. But I think the two main things they want out of this is a population reduction and just to maintain their control.
Yeah, and I talked to Celeste Saloom last night. We had a great interview for about 2.5 hours. She was telling me that now with DARPA, that's an American military program, and the United Nations, at the end of the year, this year in 2019, they're going to be beginning and rolling out test areas across the planet where they're going to sell food by the calorie. That's why you see a lot of reduction in serving sizes, especially in the UK. You know, there's been 2 different articles that I referenced in videos talking about UK government reducing the actual serving size from 2,000 or 2,200 calories down to 1,200 or 870 calories per serving. Now imagine that. If it's a worldwide program here sponsored by the UN to come out and now sell food by the calorie, you're no longer just going to go in and buy a package of food, chop that into the 1 calorie or something. This is where it gets a little ridiculous. And if you want to check out that article, it's on shepherdsheart.life, Celeste Saloom's blog there. But she goes into the DARPA program along with the UN on how they're planning to sell you food. Now, again, where are they going to roll this out as a test plot? Oregon and California. Only in those far leftist states would you even consider trying to do something like this. But that's what it's coming to.
Yeah.
That's where they know already the lack of food availability is going to be so great and so stark and so beyond anything we can comprehend that they're now really considering where you're going to buy your food by the calorie. So you start just to look at some of these more ancient texts where they say you'll have to work for an entire day to get a cup of barley or a cup of wheat or something like this, a half a loaf of bread for a day's wage. You know, something like this, I could absolutely envision it now. I couldn't even last year, but now I can absolutely see what's coming.
Yeah. Oh, totally. I've noticed it here myself, actually. Like you get these little oatcake packets and they look smaller than they used to. And as you mentioned, Tesco recently, they've increased about 1,000 different items in terms of the cost, you know, and we've had certain shortages like avocados recently. You know, people are just kept so busy that they don't even notice these changes coming in.
And speaking of cycles, my new book with my co-author Bill Porter, Climate Revolution, a must-read for understanding our sun-driven climate. As we progress deeper into this new Eddy grand solar minimum, weather extremes leading to global food scarcity and higher food prices are here now. This book describes the expected changes, how to survive and thrive during future challenging times, and also practical preparations. The entire book is interactive with over 250 links, so you can click and go out to the scientific aspect of what we're talking about with the repeating cycles in this grand solar minimum. The science is explained so you understand the mechanisms. The solutions are there because we know we're going to face these exact same problems again that were faced in the Maunder minimum, the Sporer minimum, the Wolf minimum. Find designs for building greenhouses, grow guides, beamed soil techniques, as well as bioreactors to create your own growth hormones for the soil. Available now, the new Adapt 2030 Climate Revolution. The link's in the description box below.
They're totally unprepared. Very few people know how to live off the land, how to grow their own food. But with these changes coming in, that's going to have to change dramatically. We've got this big finance sector now in London where, you know, people just go to their job, make money off stocks and shares. But then with all that collapsing as a result of what's coming with the food prices, people have got to really start thinking quick and start preparing now. And luckily, in the part of the country I'm in, we do have a lot of farming here. We have people such as my friend who you'll be meeting, who runs his YouTube Primitive Ways, John, who really takes a big interest in food. And yeah, you know, we need to start to get into that mode of thinking.
And when they do shrink the size of your packaging, but they still charge you the same price or even higher, there's a literal term for that. It's called shrinkflation. This has been used for the last probably 12 years. It came into existence around 2004 or 5. It really hit home right around 2009 after the financial crisis. Shrinkflation is the proper term for that. And you're going to see a lot more shrinkflation coming forward. And, you know, that contraction that we experienced in 2008 and 9 because fuel prices rose, that's nothing. I mean, really nothing in comparison when your food price is going to double and triple. And when I was on Alternative View 10 presenting, in the very first couple slides to drive the point home, you know, during the Maunder minimum, food prices went up 7x, 7 times higher food prices. But they went up and they spiked and they came down, went up 4 times and then it came down, and it did that undulation in the pattern there. But still, can you imagine the devastation on our economy if food prices went up 7x? Can you imagine the streets flooded with people angry that they couldn't afford the food? And then the knock-on effects of everything else in the economy that just won't function because everybody's spending so much on food. And then we start to get into the feedback loop. And then, what we're talking about tonight, just whoosh, like that peacock. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Look at that little disconnected piece over there. Look at that piece over there. Now you can see the full, array of the peacock, if you will, once you understand where this food pricing, lack of food, and these longer, solar cycles coming back in. And how would you as a government try to mitigate that or control the people through this whole 15-year event? 5G. It's the perfect mechanism to do it.
Exactly. This is it. And yeah, I mean, this is ultimately what made me come back to the UK, when I was living in Japan to get active, on this topic. And you've got not just Mark Steele, but you've got Barry Trower. You've got quite a number of people who are warning and saying this technology has been used in the military for decades now. And we're rolling this out in our streets. But unfortunately, people are so tuned into the mainstream media, and it's almost like, mind control. They're just there. They're very habitual. They go home, watch the TV. But luckily, more and more people are waking up. But the information is so shocking for people on 5G when you get to the bare bones of it that some people just can't believe it. Or they say, oh, our government wouldn't roll that out on us if it was bad for us, would they? So it's basically about making that argument that actually, yes, they would. This is what I try and do with my talks. I put as much really convincing, powerful footage together, video footage, slides, facts, into about 30, 45 minutes to get the message to people. Look, you've got to wake up. We've absolutely got to stop this. Because if we can stop 5G, then it makes it much easier for us to really start preparing for other really important things like this mini ice age we're facing. Not only that, there's the effects on the plant life. I mean, we're going to struggle to grow food if it's getting bombarded with microwave radiation all the time. It's the perfect control system. It's something I'm trying to dedicate as much time to as possible.
Yeah, I personally feel, now you can agree or disagree, that, governments love people who are within the system, that if you try to jump out of the system, that becomes a threat, that they love for you to stay in there. You're relying on the system. How reliant are you on electricity in the winter versus burning your own wood in your home to heat your own home? Grow your own gardens to the point where if you have a 1 or 2 acre garden, you have enough to sell. Now they want to tax and put all types of different stipulations on how much food you can grow in your own yard. This is where it comes to, you can't even collect your own rainwater in some states in the United States. It's illegal to collect rainwater from your own roof that's running off. There's just so many regulations on you getting out of the system that it is, from the food to the water to the electricity. And, that's what it's all about. So, if I could jump on here, Einstein had a really interesting quote. He said, once the bees disappear, humans have 7 years left to live on the planet. I mean, again, referencing pollinators, but he was talking specifically about bees. And we're coming right in sort of this, same genre, if you will, of where are all the pollinators going to? Where are the butterflies, the bees, the insects? Where are they all disappearing to? I mean, is it really neonicotinoids and some of these, herbicides, pesticides, fungicides that are getting into that ecosystem and starting to wipe out a lot of the pollinators? Or is it frequency around the towers? Because you see massive bird kill with all the windmills going on, with the wind turbines. And, what's really happening? And I might also say that the reflective heat coming off of massive solar arrays changes the heat signature, that when insects start flying over there, they just get fried. So all these purported, new tech to try to mitigate CO2 is doing enormous damage to the physical environment around us. Yet you're supposed to accept it there without even questioning it.
That's a really good point, David. In fact, in a lot of farmers' fields, I see a lot of insects thriving when they're away from a lot of this technology. You see more of the flying insects. So that for me would be a really strong argument to show, yes, it's this technology that's causing the problem, the decline. They've done a lot of tests on the effect of bees when they put like a wireless deck phone near the hives. They just go away, they leave, they don't come back. And let's look at the impact on wind turbines and solar panels. We had a guy here speaking a week ago, an electrician. He's a qualified electrical engineer. He's got a degree in this topic. And he was giving a talk on dirty electricity and how we're surrounded by dirty electricity that solar panels give off. So he's been trying to create some sort of filters to reduce the exposure from dirty electricity, smart meters, and then wind turbines. You're getting a lot of animal death near wind turbines. There was a short video that I showed the other day that showed cattle and rabbits that were just dropping dead since this wind turbine had been installed on this farm. And then you've got people like David DuByne, who used to work for the BBC, and then had to leave the BBC because he came out against wind turbines. So some people will get this moment in their life when they'll, choose the ethical way. And of course, they'll come out against all this opposition. But at the end of the day, a lot of this green tech is just one big scam. And, there's nothing in the news about the harmful effect it has, not just on plants, insects, and us as well. But it's really not the answer. And obviously, it's not going to be providing the energy that we need moving forward with the sun dimming. Yeah, I couldn't think of a greater scam myself.
And just a quick FYI, they've done a lot of studies, and the predictive reductions in solar panel output during the height of the Maunder minimum, around 2028 or so, is going to be 25% reduction. If that gives you any numbers to go on, and it's been study after study, so it's between 15 as we get into 2025, 15% reduction. But we're really getting into the cloudiness factor, the increased volcanic aerosols and reduction in albedo effect from that, and the reduced total solar irradiance output on watts per meter squared striking the planet's surface. All that coupled together, we're looking at a 15 to 25% decrease at the average that they would say, 25%. But remember, it's not about just the TSI decreasing in the watts per meter squared that are going to hit the surface. And, the naysayers will go right back to that. They'll never talk about the cloud increases with galactic cosmic rays. It's cloud nucleation, new cloud bands forming at 18,500 feet. Nope, they don't want to talk about it. So volcanic aerosols, we've seen these 5 stratospheric eruptions since the beginning of 2019. They're even coming out spaceweather.com explaining to you why the sunsets are so purple across the planet right now. And then they're, pointing to volcanic aerosols. Well, that's not such a far stretch to think. Volcanic aerosols, new increased cloud layers, more rain, and reduced solar output, literally from the sun on how many, before we get a reduction in solar panel output. Like, why is nobody talking about this? Because they have these long-range projections on ROI when they're going to invest in a certain project, and how many kilowatts they're going to sell, your consumption, even when you take advantage of some of these government programs to install solar panels on the top of your roof and then sell that back into the grid. Whatever they're thinking for ROI is completely skewed now because they're not taking into consideration the 25% reduction by 2028 for all this solar panel. And the wind patterns are shifting on the planet. So everything that they've taken into consideration we studied the last 25 years of winds on this mountain range on the backside or whatever, fine. But you're getting all these shifts in the intertropical convergence zone now, so wind patterns are shifting on the planet. I would envision this. Now let's see how on the mark I would be. Where they've installed a lot of wind farms where they think it'll continue to be windy there, there's going to be a couple places where the wind just totally stops. And they're just going to be sitting there totally idle. 0% return.
Yeah, so, this is it. And this is another reason why we're going to see a massive financial collapse, because we're just not going to be producing the energy that we need. And it's almost like, we're falling into a trap here because we're not going to be able to function. Society's not going to be able to function. We're not going to have the skills. For me, before I got involved with 5G, I didn't even know what dirty electricity was. I didn't know about what's going on here with wind turbines and the solar panels. And people just don't have access to the information. And that's why they're going to be completely unprepared for what's coming, because it really is a small minority of us. Yeah, I do what I can, like you are doing a great thing with the show, getting the word out and waking people up for those who have eyes to see. And I think that's extremely important.
TrueLeafMarket.com. I really want to talk about growing your own food, which will be a necessity moving forward. And there's so many ways that we can go about growing different types of vegetables that we're going to need. Microgreens are incredibly nutritious. They're super fast to grow. In less than a week, you can have something that you can eat. Also, sprouts. We can get those a little bit taller, a little more dense, a little bit larger volume on the vegetation mass coming off of there. So how do you know what kind of sprouts to grow? How about wheatgrass or herbs? What about different types of herbs that we can add to our foods? Now, what I just described to you, there's a full range of starter guides there at trueleafmarket.com for you to take a look at. Even if it's just for your own knowledge and you don't purchase something from them, at least get the information so you know how to grow microgreens, you know how to grow sprouts, you understand what some of the herbs are for. trueleafmarket.com. Use the link below and give yourself the gift of organic and heirloom seeds.
Yeah, so tell us about some this information. You referenced a couple of videos. You have that 5gawareness.com website. But tell us a little more about the social media feeds that you're in and where we can find videos, because I know an enormous amount of people are going to go, I want to know more right now. Tell us about some of the videos you referenced in there, other people who produce videos that you're talking about, as well as yourself, in a social stream, so people can really go out and do some of their own research and information, because that's what it's all about, is don't believe us, do your own research.
Sure, exactly. So my YouTube channel is 5G Awareness, and that's one word, number 5, letter G, awareness. And if you type that into YouTube, you'll see the channel there. It's got a little icon with a cell phone tower. And then just look through that, and there are 2 talks. One which is 5G Is It Safe Part 1, that's myself. And then 5G Is It Safe Part 2, and that's Ian Crane. So we've been doing a few of these together. Other times we go to separate locations because we've got a lot of speaking events that we're trying to cover and people we're trying to help out. So those are really useful. And then another one I'd recommend is The Truth About Extinction Rebellion. And out of all my videos, almost all my videos on my channel are just about 5G. But believe it or not, this is my highest ranking video now at over 50,000 views. So it's done pretty well. And I think because at the time there wasn't anything that was really critical about Extinction Rebellion. So there's lots of informative videos. There's also on my website, 5gawareness.com, there are templates on the downloads page about how to engage with your local councils, your local town councils. A few days ago, we've got the council declaring a moratorium on 5G. So this is the first time this has happened in the country. Now other towns are showing resistance and councillors are getting on board to try and stop it. So I've got useful templates. There's a template that's been signed by a GP, a doctor in this country who's concerned about 5G and electromagnetic frequencies. You can take that template to your GP to show him or her, get them to sign it. The more doctors we have on board, the easier it is for us to take litigation in court. Apart from that, there's also the protection tab on my 5gawareness.com page where you get 10% off a whole range of different EMF clothing, meters for detecting radiation. So I have a meter on me. I actually have a meter on me right now. And if I just switch it on, it's playing a very low level now. It's in the green. Now, if I switch my phone is here off, it's on airplane mode. But if I take it off airplane mode and put it next to it, you see how it goes right up? So we're holding these phones next to our heads and they're giving off microwave radiation. And so I always have mine on speakerphone. So I've just turned it back off and you notice it's now in the green. So I use that, if I'm moving somewhere, I need a place to live, I'll make sure there's an area in the building which is in the green, which is about 0.01 volts per squared centimeter. So it has a very minimal effect on the body, on your biology. So you can get discounts there. There's also the Facebook page, the Twitter page, and I'm putting together a forum which is designed to be a platform for people to come together. It's got regions throughout the UK. I'm planning to expand it so it incorporates the States, other countries around the world, and people can communicate through that forum. So discuss solutions, ideas, tips that they have. So yeah, that's on my 5gawareness.com website as well. They can also donate through the website on the main page, and that basically helps me to keep going and getting around and talking about 5G. And I'm more than happy to come to the States and give a talk sometime because I love the US of A, so I'd love to come out there.
Yeah, and you can see how ferociously defended this information is because they're so afraid of this information getting out. You got to wonder really what's behind there that they're so afraid of you learning. And this is kind of the first steps. And again, when I had spoken at Alternative View 10 with Ian Crane, also, who you referenced there in the video, who was the organizer of the event, I had known really very so little about it. But when I left that conference, I was a changed human being on the way I perceived that tech and how I talked to my family about it and trying to get them aware back in the States, because they're saying in the state where I live in Tennessee that it's starting to be unfurled a little bit. They're trying to put it down some major expressways that are running east-west, north-south through the state to try to bring that in. And Nashville is also one of the first cities that's going to be getting the 5G right downtown. So there's a lot of things happening just even locally where I live. But, you talk to most people in the States and they just have almost no idea about this. And again, it's about the awareness coming together. And I'm trying to do my little bit to explain and let my viewers get the most information they can.
Social media now, the reason I set up the forum on the website is we're seeing more of this censorship, stuff getting labeled as fake news. I posted something, there was some article I found, really good article, critical of Al Gore and, the Inconvenient Truth film he made. Yeah, it just disappeared completely from my feed. And then I tried to repost it and I got a little warning box pop up saying, you must understand that this has been labeled by such and such agency as fake news. This will be flagged if you post it. And this is what they're starting to do now with 5G, particularly. But I find, climate change is a really big one. And in the UK, if you're labeled as a climate change denier, which is what they fire at you, of course, you're not denying that there is climate change because we're facing this mini ice age. But it's like they just fed these subliminal messages through the media and it just goes in and they just react. And it's why I set up the forum on my website, because I figured if they shut down the Facebook group, we've now got over 20,000 members now on Stop 5G UK Facebook. If they shut that down, at least we've got the forum as a temporary backup.
I have been talking here with John Kitson, 5gawareness.com. And John, as always, with everybody I talk to, the last thought is yours. So if you want to share any ideas, thoughts, closing remarks, or anything that popped to mind as we had through this interview, take us out of the interview here. What do you think? Anything to wind up with today?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. I think when we talk about this topic, 5G, it's such a heavy issue for a lot of people. You might think to yourself, how do I deliver this to people? How do I tell them? How do I wake people up? What's the most effective way? And I think the most important direction to take it first is, how is it going to affect our health? Because everybody cares about health. Health is wealth at the end of the day. And also, I was listening to a talk not too long ago about engaging with people's emotions. So if you're able to engage with their emotions, you're able to basically get a message to them and for them to digest that message more easily. So when I gave my talk a few days ago, I was giving a talk at the sustainability event. There were a lot of people in their 20s, their 30s. They believed in climate change. They wanted to make a difference. But I showed some videos on effects on animals and children. And I said, don't we want to look after these groups? What are we doing? And they were really quite emotive. And I just think we've really got to connect with each other. Tell people you care. Tell people, how you feel. You want to make a difference and that you care. And that's why you're telling them this information. I think that's really key. That's what I've started to do now. And it's just made a big difference, really. And I've put a lot of videos on my videos page, on my site, with a lot of interviews with doctors. And it's very mind-blowing, but convincing stuff at the same time. And don't be fearful when you keep spreading the message about what's happening with climate change, with 5G. Just be true to yourselves. And that's my message to everybody.
Thanks for joining me. And again, that rollover year we're coming up, so where everything you've ever learned about climate change is next year. So there's no longer ability for them to fake it any longer after next year. So staying with this message here, staying with the trueness to yourself in the light, because we're all trying to help humanity and other people get through these times the best we can to protect ourselves, because others aren't doing it. It's really a sad kind of state we're living in now, where you as an individual have to come out to take over where government has failed us completely and literally in so many ways and shapes and forms. So it is back to individualism again. It's a great thing. It's empowering to know you can grow your own food. You can create your own electricity. You can, make your own heat. You can get your own water. You can purify your water. You can protect yourself from EMF and 5G radiation by using diet and other kind of, what you're talking about, devices there to protect your home, your families, and yourselves. And that's, the way you have to look at it. You're on your own to protect yourself. But we need to share the information on how you can do that.
One last thing I wanted to mention. We're very much looking forward to having you here in Totnes in Devon. And we're going to be having you speak about the more than minimum, what's really going on with the climate, the mini ice age. That will be on the 29th of October in Totnes in Devon. And I'll be putting that on the events page on my website. So we look forward to having you here, David.
Yeah, I'm really excited about getting down there. And we talked about, looking at some of the ley lines, some of the older structures down there. And also getting together, with some bushcrafting and primitive ways and how we can think about living a more sustainable life and coming together as a community to grow the food, but live in a more wholesome way. And I'm so excited to be able to connect with other people down there. And we're going to do some live streaming. I have a couple other people in the States that want to pick up some live streams and do a round table or two while we're down there live so we can share the information as it goes on firsthand. So it's going to be quite the media event on our side, too, from the States to try to pull in this information on more live streams, as well as what's happening in the conference itself and the networking afterward, and then the on-site visits. We talked about going out to the land there and exploring a few other, like I said, ley lines and older parts of the city. So it's going to be really exciting, and I think we're going to learn so much from each other and the community itself to get these ideas so then we can take these next step forward to get ready for these massive changes.
For sure. Looking forward to it.
Talk to you next time. And hey, everybody out there, thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video.
Thank you.
This video is brought to you by our friends at TrueLeafMarket.com. Heirloom and organic seeds for any grow zone on our planet.